I guess we'll get started. Welcome to the Post-mortem for Just a Little Lovin. Thank you. Just for the quick introductions will be that the part of the point of this Post-mortem will be to talk about some of the things that were done during the LARP, what could have done better, what could have gone worse. That's a very Finnish way to put it. And also to give other people, all of you, the chance to ask questions as well. So I hope there will be some time for that. It's a very short time. It's like 45 minutes. And we'll try to leave time for questions at the end. First off, I'm Jamie McDonald. I'm going to be hosting this panel. And I played the original run of the game in 2011, and I also played this time as Hank, so I was co-organizing and also playing a character. And if you all could introduce yourselves and your relationship to the game.
I'm Essi Santala. In this run, I was the person with the strings in their hands, so I guess you could call me the producer or one of them. And I played the game myself in 2015 in Denmark.
I'm Jonas Ivonen. I have never played this game, but I was organizing this, and I don't know, I did all the possible things from driving vans to setting up stuff and burning burgers.
That's something awesome.
My name is Tonja Goldblatt. I played it in 2012, and I was asked into this production to do sets and props, and I ended up doing everything except budgets because I don't do money. Willy.
Hi, I'm Willy. I played this game with Tonja in 2012. This time I played again, and I also provided erotic art for the LARP setting.
Who in this room, by the way, is familiar with this LARP? Passing familiarity, and a couple people don't know it quite so well. So, Just a Little Lovin is a LARP set in 1982, 83, and 84 in New York State, and it is about the AIDS crisis during that time. That's the basics of it. At a glance, we had 66 players from 15 countries, which is quite unusual for Finland. I'm not sure if this is the most international LARP that has been run here. Probably. Are you going to go tell them to move on? Yes. We had an on-site team of 8 local organizers and crew, plus 5 organizers from previous runs. 5 of the crew were designated safety persons. Players were on-site from Tuesday evening to Sunday morning, so it's a much longer LARP than we're kind of used to. The crew was on-site, I think, Sunday to Sunday? Was it?
Or Monday. We went to the site on Monday morning.
Okay, all right.
We went to Sakula on Sunday.
Yeah.
Ticket prices were €275. That was the normal, regular, usual ticket price. And we had reduced ticket prices of €175 and 20 players. We managed to provide that for 20 players. And we had a total running budget of about €20,000, which I think, again, is quite large for a Finnish standard. The way that the LARP structure worked is at first we were there having initial workshops, getting to know everybody, getting to know how the game mechanics worked, especially the intimacy mechanics, the sex mechanics. And there were 8 hours of workshops before the first act, and then the first act starts in the afternoon, around or early evening. People play until the next morning. Then there is a meta scene, which is the death lottery. You find out who has been infected and who is dead. The characters actually die in this LARP. Then there is an act break where we have another debrief, some more workshopping. You talk with your character groups for about 6 hours. Change hairstyles. And then the same thing repeats for 3 days, basically. And on the final day, we have instead of having, going to the next one, there's the debrief. Then we have something called contextualization speakers, which were 3 people who were playing the LARP who were able to give some real world context to what people had just played. So we had one person was a cancer survivor, because there are cancer survivors in this LARP as well. It's not just about a gay group of people. There's also a group of people who had survived cancer in their teenage years. So that's one of the things in the story, is that there is a group of people who have already dealt with disease and death, and then there's another group of people who are dealing with disease and death and stigma. So we had one cancer survivor who was able to talk about how we portrayed cancer and cancer survivorship. There was a person who was a person of color from the US who was able to talk about how we had portrayed New York. And also 2 people who had experience with family members with HIV. And also with scenes such as the male leather scene, the gay male leather scene in earlier. So they were able to talk a little bit about how well the players portrayed this thing, not so much in you guys missed this sort of thing, but that they said that this was there and that was good, and this wasn't there, but it would have been there. It was there in real life. So just so you know what was different from how you played it. Something that is also in the structure of the LARP is that the act structure is the same every single time, because it's always a 4th of July party. So when it begins, we start out by raising the flag at the venue and singing the Star Spangled Banner, which is a complicated thing for some non-US players and some US players. There are things like the Saratoga Pact. The Saratoga group are the group of cancer survivors, and every year they get together and they do a little pact where they resolve to do something with their lives. There would be dinner. There was a drag show every year. There was a memorial service on the 2nd and 3rd years, which should have been burning things, but because the forest fire warnings were so horrible, we ended up having to do a different ritual by the river, which turned out really nicely. And then there's something called the green drink, which Tonya made, which at midnight is a meta drink that you take, that whatever you're playing at that moment, you can do a 180. You can completely change how you're playing and your actions and do something really different, or you can go much further into what you're playing right now. So it's a meta technique that allows people to take their game in a more intense direction, however they like. And plus, a lot of other groups had their little unofficial yearly rituals. So the timetable of the LARP was actually quite packed, but it repeated every year. And then what we're going to do from now, that's just a basic overview of what the LARP was like. And then the rest of the slides are just a massive slideshow of photos. If you see something you want to ask something about, just keep it in your mind. But then I'm going to start to ask the panel some questions about what we did. The next bunch of this picture is actually one from the fundraiser that we had at Mascot. We raised 500 euros in order to be able to subsidize more tickets. The next set of photos are all going to be about the venue and the scenography. So why don't we talk a little bit about the scenography? Tonya, maybe I'd start with you. What were the big challenges for this space, for this LARP?
Big challenges as okay, everybody can chip in also. I got nothing. It was easy. Yeah. Well, forest fire warnings, because you're supposed to burn stuff, was a thing. The venue is an old wooden, some sort of opisto building, and we were not allowed to nail anything on the walls or hang anything from the ceiling, which we created a hippie room in there, and we had to hide a lot of modern technology that is not contemporary in the 80s. So we put a curtain wall there, and how you manage to hang a curtain wall if you're not allowed to nail anything on the walls is don't ask. I mean, we never nailed anything. You can't see it. But then we had, what did we have?
I think the,
600 balloons?
yeah, I think the biggest thing was that we had to make a Finnish old wooden office to look like it was 80s New York.
And that's not going to happen, so we have to make it believable that you can play that it's New York.
Yeah, but we added a lot of plastic and a lot of US colors. And that's basically how we did it. We had 600 balloons, which was our main thing to make a disco.
Yeah, I think we used 500 because
Yeah,
we didn't have time to fill them all up. I think 250 of them were filled with helium between the act breaks.
We had also quite a bit of lighting and sound equipment.
That's yours. That's your specialty, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
and props-wise, we also had some props in the yard. And then, of course, the death scene.
Yeah, 5 coffins.
Yeah, we had the 5 coffins and the tent to keep them dry.
So how did you find the venue? What did you look for, or is it fun?
Right.
Leading question.
Yeah, I think the main problem was that we wanted people have a nice living quarters and have a venue which can provide us with a kitchen crew so that we don't need to do that ourselves. And to have enough space for all of this. There are several, we have mentioned several of the play sites, but then there was the dark room and black boxes and stuff like that. So to have lots of quite big rooms, nice place for the disco and stuff like that, lots of rooms and stuff like that, and then getting that in reasonable price and reasonable distance from Helsinki.
Yeah, I think the main thing was that we should be less than 3 hours from Helsinki by bus, and that 66 people or 75 people should have a bed to sleep in at night, and it would be a definite plus if there was a river or a lake nearby.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because that's important for
that's in the script.
story.
Yeah. Originally, the story calls for 4th of July fireworks, which we couldn't have because of the fire regulations and also just because of Finland. So but we also had limitations, like you couldn't use hairspray inside the building, which for an 80s LARP is incredible. So we had to, I don't know what people did, if they sprayed outside or if they,
outside.
Okay, yeah, we got around it. And yeah, there's also creating a lot of different spaces for the hippie room, which comes up next as well. But what about thinking in terms of, for the get-in, was there enough crew? Were there specific challenges with the scenography that would have been what would you have done was the budget good? Would you have done something totally different with more money or less?
Well, getting the stuff over to Länsi-Suomen Opisto from Turku and Helsinki. I mean, I wasn't there carrying it, but you were.
There's a lot of van Tetris.
We got it all.
Yeah, it all fit in the van, but when I first saw the van, I was not that sure that it will fit in there. Yeah, but yeah, it's we could have used more of different kinds for decoration and stuff like that, but that would have mean that we would need more people to set it up.
Yeah.
And things like that. We had so great sound and light for several of the black boxes and the thing, and actually we got that cheap.
And I think also an important thing is that we had 2 people there. I mean, we had Henka and Kukkis, and Kukkis just showed up to help us put up stuff. Then she went back to Helsinki to work during the LARP, and then she came back to take it all down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There she is. Doing awesome stuff.
Actually, I think that's me.
No, that's you. But that's
Oh, that's
yeah.
her. Yeah, I didn't even see her.
One thing that Essi Sankala, who was also on the crew, wanted us to also point out that we had this kitchen.
Not me.
I'm sorry, Essi Kuka. Wanted to have pointed out was that we did have a kitchen crew, and I think actually the food was quite good. For a LARP, like not for a Michelin restaurant, but for a LARP.
Yeah.
But we still had to. Because it wasn't Helsinki as well, like the idea of getting like gluten-free, vegan, this free, that free was also still a challenge. Like it had to be communicated in advance, and then it had to be communicated again once we were at the venue.
But they were great, and they did a quite big, much work for cooking it in a Finnish kitchen, but to get us the feeling of having American food. It was definitely Finnish food, and they did lots of stuff which they hadn't done before in the kitchen.
Yeah, but they should have like did the effort.
Yeah, they took the challenge of helping us to keep on with the feeling of 80s US.
Then there was also the challenge of specific spaces. Like, for instance, I think the drag queens, you guys were all in the gymnasium.
Yeah.
Which was a pretty large space for a backstage.
But it worked quite well.
You managed to magic circle it, basically.
Yeah.
Because it was basically having like this gigantic gymnasium where you could play like floorball. And in one corner of it, near the dance mirrors, are a bunch of drag queens just huddled with a bunch of glitter in one area. And there's all this empty space that's being kind of used with nothing. It's not playable space at all. Nobody's using it. But the drag queens are all in one little section. Kind of thing. Another thing that we did as well, we had a kiosk. And Sylvia was running that most of the time. Where we sold things such as very American soft drinks, A&W root beer and cream soda. Once people discovered the Jolt Cola, that went really fast. That was the original. It was released in 1983, and it is the original high caffeine cola. And once people realized what it was, it started to sell.
So can I comment?
Yes, please.
This is PK, who is one of the Norwegian original writers. There's two of them, and one was with us. And he's making mocktails, like alcohol-free cocktails. And it was really nice that he was, there also cocktailing and bartending and being DJ.
Fancy drinks.
Yeah. And the whole LARP was alcohol-free. So we had alcohol-free beers everywhere and alcohol-free mocktails. And we did actually sell snacks in the kiosk for real money during the LARP. We didn't know if we would have the budget to supply backroom snacks for everybody the entire time, and we didn't really have an off-game room where other players could go. So we had lots of different kinds of snacks and drinks that were for sale during the LARP, and that seemed to work quite okay.
That's a question.
Can I ask, how did you manage to deal with the fact that players have different amounts of money available, that if the character is rich and wants to serve everybody everything, and then the player is poor like a rat and can't buy anything from the bar or something like that?
Did we have any players playing on that?
We had once.
We had a few. But we offered a few drink tickets for everybody.
Yeah.
So that everybody had the chance of getting something from the bar, even though that they wouldn't have the possibility of using money.
Beyond that, actually, I think they had a ceremony, an official ceremony, where they had this champagne in the hood of their car every year.
Yes,
So they had some like alcohol-free champagne, rebottles or something.
Yeah, and we sold all the stuff at the kiosk very cheap, so it wasn't like we didn't really make much of a profit on it.
And we once had this situation, one character decided to offer everyone around, but then each of us, as a player, we paid our own drinks. So
was just going to add that originally one of the characters could also offer Coke, which was just like powdered sugar. So, yeah.
Oh shoot! I have my notes on a paper cup here. So. The next thing, one of the things that took a long time and was really a lot of a headache, but I mean fun headache, was the casting. And I think Jonas and Essie here were most had their hands most in the casting. Do you want to talk about some of the challenges that presented themselves?
Well, I think the total number of cancelled players was 19, which is quite a bit out of 66 players. But we luckily we had 140, I think, 130 something players signing up, and from those we could cast the players for the game. So we had quite a bit of people to like in the reserves.
And luckily for us, there was no cancellations during the last month or so. So no of that last minute thing, because getting somebody on short call for a week-long play could be a problem.
Yeah, but there were 2 players that we actually casted on the last week.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and yeah, and that was because a couple of the previous organizers warned me that this LARP has a record of lots of late cancellations.
Yeah.
And we didn't have those that much.
Yeah.
So lucky for us. About the casting, we did quite a big part of that on random. We just randomized not the casting, but the player selection part.
Did you literally code a random number generator in the casting process? I remember this. Because we had an Excel sheet and we had all the number, everybody was a number, and he makes a random number generator.
Doesn't take more than half a minute, but yeah.
Anyway.
So our casting was part of picking the players so that we would have players for the performing roles, but then we randomized the rest so that we could just have enough of everyone.
Yeah, there are a few key roles which we made sure that we have found someone who is good for and capable of taking all the responsibilities on that. And then we randomized a bunch, and then we filled the last maybe 6 or 8.
It was 8, 9.
If you pay, just to make it sure that the different kind of distributions are in check, that we have whatever kind. I can't remember which kind of demographics we were checking, but at least country they are from, ages, and of course one of the things is this LARP script has it takes lots of case of the gender and the sexuality of the characters, and we had to keep on track all the time of what parts of that people wanted to play, and shuffle on that.
Yeah, and we had a lot of cancellations or people not wanting to play something because they were offered a straight character. So people wanted to play gay at this LARP. So we had a problem filling in the straight characters. That was a big problem with the casting.
I think is first time that's happened with this LARP. Like when they found out that finally happened, they were like, yes, finally, we can't get straight players or straight characters for the LARP.
We had lots of open questions on the registration form, and
those take a lot of time to go through.
Yeah, so
I don't recommend them.
Yeah, it's a for doing this again. I would change. There are a few things which I would ask more in a straightforward fashion. Of, for example, because we asked an open question of which genders and sexuality you want to play. And
we couldn't understand all the answers.
Yeah, decoding that out of there took some time. Yeah.
and also something that we noticed in that part of the sign up was that people, when we asked the question like, why do you want to play this LARP? Because sometimes we wouldn't know who these people were. And sometimes they would give us answers that were extremely long, extremely intimately detailed, and very personal. And the sense of responsibility that came immediately when we started to read these, okay, somebody has trusted us. Because they want to play this LARP, they have trusted us with details of their life that are they're not going to trust just anybody with. And that was that was super humbling.
That was awfully hard when we had the lottery of who gets randomly selected to play. And there are these people who have actually told us their secrets. And then we tell them, I'm sorry, you didn't get lucky, you can't play. And that hurt. But that's life.
Next questions we have. How is this different, do you think, from previous runs, the ones that you've played, if you've played them? I'll ask Lily.
Well, of course, the venue was very different, much better. Just workshops and everything was much more well organized. Because when I played first time, kind of the phallus sex mechanics, we were just given basically the pink dildos and
we'll get back to this later.
And just play with those. But now we got like proper examples. What can you do with them, and how to play also, because in the lesbian sex scenes, it's quite stupid to use something like this, but it was introduced. Everything worked much more better. And of course, because in the first time I played in Saratoga in the straight group, and now I played in the gay group, it was like total different game for me.
So maybe we could say something about the sex mechanics, which if you're not familiar with the LARP, well, you saw a bunch of pink things on the slideshow. Those were the phalluses, and the way that you would have is quite involved. The way that you would have sex with somebody is that first you would offer them a pink feather, which was a signal to open negotiation. And so I would offer you a pink feather, and if you would take it, that would be a signal that, yes, I would like to play a scene with you. And then I would say, okay, I want to play this scene where we're in the corner of the disco while everybody else is on the dance floor, and I just would you like to play that?
Sure.
And then what would you like to do in it?
Start making out, but then I break in tears and run away.
Okay, that's cool. Great. So we would negotiate what the content of the scene was going to be, and then we would negotiate what the ending of the scene was going to look like. So both players should know what the scene was about. Then the way that you would have that pink phallus, and you would use it larvishly like a phallus. It could be anywhere on your body. I mean, you could hold it. You could hold it here, and somebody could touch it, or it could be rubbing against somebody's leg or something like that. Or you could have it anywhere. You could in some one of the lesbian sex scene, person with vagina sex scene would be that it's sort of held there. It could be held on your leg, and the other person is touching it in some way. So it's very meta, and it's very awkward and embarrassing the first times you do it in the workshop, which I'm sure players can be like, yeah, this is very awkward the first time. But only on the first time. But as the organizers, we acted out lots of examples with great voice noises. And also we had in the workshops, you would break up into smaller groups and try out different scenes with different people to just get over the embarrassment mechanism. It doesn't mean that players were under no obligation to play sex scenes at any point in the LARP. They did not have to play anything. But the point of the workshops being so thorough with them was to really break through that kind of embarrassment. And it was kind of silly. And then at the end of a scene, which was also very important, the two players, or however many players were in the scene, should stand shoulder to shoulder, and each one holds an inner monologue. So if we just done that scene, we would have been like here, and I might have said, was it something I said? I'm gonna make sure I get it right next time.
I cheated on my boyfriend. I'm the worst person ever.
So the characters don't hear this monologue, but the players do, and it gives the players some way to kind of contextualize what the sex is about. Because sex in this LARP is not just sex in a LARP. The sex is storytelling, and that's super, super important. But then again, we should also say this isn't our design. This is Torchetto and Hanne Grasmo's design, and we are following their design.
And back to the question, what was different with this run from the other ones? I think that in this run, it was like especially like we had the runtime crew, as we called them, 5 people coming in just to like run the LARP. We just organized it. We just like put in the pieces, and then they come and take over the players and run the LARP. And then we're just like brewing coffee all the time. That's what I did. And then some people flip burgers, I understood, and other stuff. But like, I think this was different from the other LARPs, that those two were very separate. So that the only one of us to like be part of running the workshops was Jamie. And I believe it hasn't been in the earlier runs. It has not been that like separate as we had it.
Yeah, I think we had a bigger just group.
Division of labor.
I think this was just bigger in
general.
Always.
Yeah. But when you run Just a Little Lovin', there are organizers who come from out of country who have organized Just a Little Lovin' before. So it's never a team of people who have never, not even just played it, but never organized.
So far, it hasn't been.
Yeah. TK is working on getting the LARP script out so that he doesn't have to be there every single time, because he has been there every single time. But yeah, I think it was very different for all of us what we spent the entire LARP doing as crew. You were brewing coffee and blowing up balloons?
Yeah. And I also think that it's quite different from many like Finnish LARPs or LARPs in general, that the people who have actually written the LARP, that they only they get to do just that and then run it and don't have to focus on the practical issues that much. Because I have a feeling that it's usually the same people doing all the stuff. Am I right or wrong?
Well, many times it is not always, and I think in these days it's getting more specialized.
Yeah. So what we did was try have specialities for everybody, what they're taking care of. I brewed coffee.
And a lot of the labor was lifting, carrying, putting things together, being in the right place at the right time, making sure things were done. And then a lot of the labor was emotional labor in this LARP. There was quite a lot of that. Making sure that players whose play was not going in a direction that they wanted, that they had some assistance to kind of reintegrate into the play differently again. There was quite a lot of that, and it was, I think it went quite smoothly, but again, I was involved. So. But we have 10-ish, we'll try to stretch it, more minutes. We'd really love to hear any questions that folks have, or any comments if you played. That's also really interesting.
If your character died, what did you do at the 2 other games or 2 other nights?
Did anybody here have a character who died?
No, I don't think. I think these are all survivors.
We all survived. If you died in the act break, you got a new character, and you were workshopped into the social circles again. And in the first time I played this, it was really hard for the characters to get that same emotional connection. But this time, I felt like it wasn't that hard. A couple of the characters, I forgot their original characters. So, yeah.
Yeah, they had pre-written characters that you could choose from, and then they would you would workshop your new character with one of the
groups.
one of the organizers that were not us. I have forgotten what we call them.
The EXO organizers.
The EXO organizers, yes. And then you would have a character, and it would be incorporated into the core groups and everything, and then you'd start playing with your new friends and watch your new friends mourn your previous character.
But also because when like all the other players knew that this person needs some extra boost to get back in. So it was also good to have experienced, because the LARP has been run many times. It gets much easier to reincorporate people. While we wait for other questions, I can say the one bit of feedback that we had that was quite difficult for us to deal with, or that we didn't do so well, perhaps, was actually in the photographs. Because we had one person professionally photographing the LARP, and we had a couple players photographing, and Jonas was taking photos with a SLR, not digital, so good, and I had a Polaroid. So we had a few people taking photos, but as has been discussed in LARP circles a little bit more this year, not everybody makes it into the official photographs, and sometimes this feels really alienating for some people. So we had some feedback about what the point of the documentation was. Is it to show off the best possible images of the LARP, to create artwork out of the artwork that is the LARP, or is it to document everybody and try to find everybody a scene? And that's a challenge, and I don't think we solved it perfectly.
We'll do better next time.
Will that be a next time?
The next run that I know that is supposed to be coming up next year would be in the UK, but they had an organizers meetup, most of whom were people who played this run. A lot of the UK, a lot of people who want to run it in the UK came to this run. And I think there might be another US run planned eventually.
Oh.
I don't know who else.
And there's also been some talk of a run in northern Sweden, but I haven't heard anything about that in a while.
Yeah.
Well, this was a lovely thing. That here are 3 of our EXO organizers, and they've done the LARP before. And this was in the 3rd act. You could go and get HIV tested at the doctors, and everybody did that at the beginning of the act. Most people did that. It's very. It was pretty horrific. Yeah. What else? Any other questions? Sure.
I know that you faced some criticism on the, or at least there were discussions on whether or not you are like favoring people from the LGBTI scene when you're casting or not, and should you be doing it and should you be not? So was this an issue you as organizers were talking about before you decided whatever you decided, and how did you do this? Because I heard several comments about that people who are living this marginalized lives and are already facing difficulties, or who kind of own the scene, or who have experienced it, that they should be able to like play in, or they should be favored, or it should be made more affordable to them, especially, and it's like appropriation if only like white straight people come and play. Was the discussion you had as organizers?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you decide, and how did you manage?
I mean, most of the vast majority of the players were queer.
And the vast majority of the sign-upped people are
Were
queer.
Yeah.
And they were like they told it in the
Yeah, it was on and about the subsidized tickets. That was one of the main reasons to get to back it up. And of course, the 175 is not cheap either.
Well, it's not cheap if you're just gonna sit at home for 4 days. But if you're gonna go somewhere, stay somewhere, get fed somewhere, and have entertainment for 4 days, then it's really not expensive at all.
But for the people who can't afford it, it's money.
It is
And we
money,
were painfully aware of this.
Yeah.
So when this critique came, we actually made the whole fundraiser club just to get those 500 so we could get more subsidized tickets. Targeted mostly for people.
Yeah, so, yeah. I read that Facebook discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read what I could because some of it was in Finnish as well. Yeah.
But we were painfully aware of this. So all the money we raised from the fundraiser went to allow people that have less money to participate.
less money and queer, or just less money, or
No. We asked in the sign up, do you want to apply for a subsidized ticket,
Yeah.
and what is your motivation?
Yeah.
So if you just said, well, I don't want to pay you, then you didn't get any. But if you,
And also that has to then be balanced with there isn't that much sense in running this LARP with 66 queer players because the LARP includes straight people and it includes straight people's experiences around queer people, and those are a part of the LARP. So it is actually really difficult to run it with an entirely queer identified cast. Because for one thing, like there are things like homophobia is a huge part of Just a Little Lovin', and it's not meant to be watered down, and it's not meant to be avoided. It's meant to be there because it is this historical motivation for so many things. Yeah.
But do you think that only straight people can LARP straight people? I don't see how this.
No, but it's also it's not simply a LARP for. We've had, like, for instance, some of the feedback that we get from the players who are straight was also that they got to experience something, not being the majority in that situation, to be able to kind of see it from a different point of view. So for them to be able to walk into a space that they didn't own at all was really, really valuable for them, and that I think is also something to be respected. But it is very hard to pick the people. It's really hard. It feels hard to leave people out. Definitely. There is also there's a one-shot chamber LARP version called I Say a Little Prayer that is made by the same people who has the same basis of the story, and that is much more portable and much easier to run for folks. But this LARP also it's always had the design of being 4 to 5 days, and without arts funding, I don't think it's possible to give those tickets away. Yes.
What was the most emotional thing in this story? You don't have to say it. Go on, tell us. Do you have any stories?
I think the death lottery is emotional. When you hear the names of your loved ones or friends, and also getting the guilt that, okay, they are gonna die, but I'm still here. And you are going that through 3 times, and it's hurting more and more every time.
I could say unfairness and survivor kit.
Yeah.
I've also pulled out the debriefing actually. Like between each act there is a debriefing session, and of course after the third act there's this really long debriefing with all the contextual speeches. And it was really amazing and touching how much people are willing to share, not just about the LARP, but also the issues that they LARP actually touch in their real life. So that was something that I tried to make, like, contextualize the whole thing. That it's actually real, it's actually happening, people have experienced it, it's not just a LARP. So that was really, really touching.
We're kind of out of time. It's 4 to 6 minutes.
Okay.
I would love to tell stories about.
We can go outside.
We can go outside and tell stories about it. If you have any other questions, you can also ask any of the team if we're hanging around, or you can find us also on Facebook and also ask us some questions about how to. But thank you all for coming and for checking it out.
Do you have the patches?
I have the patches. We got patches if you still want one.
How much are they?
5.
€5. This was another fundraising initiative. It was Donna, you designed
Yep,
the
totally.
patches.
On a napkin.
For the first time, there was Just a Little Lovin merch, so we could raise money to again be able to subsidize players.
Picture.
What?
The US one has this cool picture.
Oh, well then we're not.
But we have a cool patch, and you can buy the cool patch, and that supports the players that have subsidized.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's wrap this up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.